his sophomore year, the end of that school year, his depression and anxiety began to really spike. And he did fine that school year and ended up but the summer was really hard for him. He actually had a falling out with this core group of 3 really close friends. They were good kids and really close. Had a falling out with them, and worked hard to find new friends. Found a job in lacrosse. Was really proud of that and was doing well. He was very well regarded there, but he was really struggling, just trying to find his new niche. And then school resumed for his junior year, and he just didn't have the concentration. And he could tell that he was falling behind and failing. And we were seeing him dwindle, and then there's the struggle of getting a 16-year-old boy to take meds, because we took him to see people, to be prescribed, and the compliance was an issue. Thanksgiving time, the Sunday after Thanksgiving, he overdosed, significant overdose. Ended up in the hospital. We had to transfer him up to Eau Claire. He was committed. Got through that, went through the court system. He had a case manager in our county. Had a psychiatrist, a therapist. The night before he died, we actually went in to see the therapist, and she thought maybe he was starting to turn a corner. I came out of her office, though, and he was just in the waiting room, and he just was like a shell of himself. He was just kind of sleeping, and the next day he was sick. He didn't want to go to school. He was home with his brother. And his brother had to go to work about 3 o'clock. Luke took advantage of that, drove away to a place where he knew he had access to a gun, picked the lock on the gun cabinet, and shot himself. So that's how he died.
That's how he died.
Again, though, to speak to how he thought of others, he called 911 before he died. So that the police could come and find him, so the family that lived there wouldn't find him.
Yeah.
What an amazing child.
Yeah, yeah.
Which makes the grief so profound.
Yeah. I don't know that I've really talked to Sam about just the depth of the loss that he feels. I mean, I know that it's there, and we talk about Luke all the time, but never in that context. So that's this exercise and doing this is going to, I think, spur that conversation.
And I think for Sam also, it was a tremendous, tremendous loss that he, I would say, probably just in the last maybe year at most, has started to get back on his feet and kind of find his way. So I think Sam's probably now in a better place than he's ever been to be able to really talk about it in more depth without it just being too much to handle at the time. Yeah.
And Sam's insight into why Luke committed suicide is that he had just lost hope. There was no hope.
Yes.
And he understood that. Sam understood that. Yeah.
It's an important thing to understand.
Yeah.
Right.
And I think that perhaps, I don't know if you agree with this, but perhaps part of the stigma about suicide in general is that people don't understand that. They truly do not understand that.
Yeah.
Right.
Pull yourself up.
Pull yourself up.
Yeah.
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 Get through this day.
Yeah.
Get up, get out.
Get up, get out, do
exercise,
something.
Do something.
Absolutely.
And I think the thing with any type of mental illness, but I think especially depression, is it robs people of basically the stamina and their ability to persevere when they need it the most. And that's one of the most debilitating things about that disease process, is that a person is robbed of that.
Yes.
So one of the things we were talking about last evening in terms of things that people said that were helpful, and maybe things that people would say that weren't helpful when Luke died. And I told Tim I didn't recall really people saying things at the time that were necessarily hurtful. And I think part of that was because we didn't hide how Luke died. His obituary was written that he lost his battle with depression. We received cards from people we had never met because they read that obituary and talked about their own child's suicide and how much they, just being able to name that, how important that was. That was an astounding thing to open this card. I remember saying to Tim, "Do you know this person?" And no, and then to read her story, it was,
We learned
we learned a lot from other people.
we learned that a lot of people have been touched by suicide, directly or indirectly.
Right.
Yeah.
I think you spoke earlier, Rana, to the stigma, and that's part of why I do what I do, is because I think Luke said it in his little poem. Was concerned that people looked at him and made judgments. And I think when someone dies by suicide,
Yes.
I don't want them to judge my child. So I will do this to help people understand, hopefully have a better understanding of how someone might be at this point in their life that this is how they die. I early on looked at it and talked with it in terms of Luke having a very viral type of infection or disease. That depression was quick, strong, viral, and it
Killed them.
it killed him. People die of many disease processes, and unfortunately, how people die of the disease process of depression oftentimes is by suicide.
Yes.
But I think through my grieving, I also was able to develop a little glimpse of that dark, lightless room that Luke probably lived in almost every day.
Yeah.
And could understand why he'd want to be out.
Right. That there was no other way. He
It was-
was left
he
feeling.
was-
The only way to
It was-
relieve the pain.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
Yep.
One of the things that I'm, I guess, very drawn to and committed to is the idea of caregiving theory, that actually John Bowlby is the person who first talked about that and wrote about it. But I don't mean to get off on a theoretical tangent, but I still was thinking of this because he would say that caregiving and that element of who you are when you have children is a lifelong kind
Yeah.
of thing.
Yeah.
And I heard you, Kay, talk about the issue of suicide and maintaining Lucas's dignity and the respect you want people to have for him. And it's so profound because that's your way of caring for him, even though he isn't physically with you.
Right.